Hello and welcome to another episode of the Hey Joe Show. We have been out too long. It is good to be back live.
I don't even know the last show we recorded.
I am not sure either, but I'm sure that those 6 followers that we have will be able to tell us when the last time we were on.
Hey, it's at least 16.
At least 16. That's a preacher's count right there. No doubt about that. No, it's not a preacher's count. We have at least 5. So anyhow.
I think our camera's zooming in and out on its own.
Oh, I'd made it do that.
Oh, because it just zoomed in on the KP and then came back out.
Obviously there is a delay in our actual recording and the broadcast. And so I did that a little bit ago. So we're in the future. How about that?
We're in the future?
We are existing in the future,
so cool.
And they are hearing it in the past. That's how we roll here on the Hey Joe Show. And hey, we want to thank you for coming back and tuning in on a beautiful Sunday night.
I'm trying to get my microphone all situated
here.
For those that are watching me, they're like,
those of you who are
Erin.
listening, for those of you who are listening, you're going, what is going on? Well, the idea is in our studio, our microphone stands here can move, and sometimes that's just really fun to move them. So anyhow, we've had a great day.
Yes, we've had a great week.
We really have. We've been out, and sometimes we're out because we're just tired. I mean, that's just it. Sometimes ministry gets you tired.
Sometimes we're out because we're working really hard.
And sometimes we're out because we're working really hard.
And sometimes we're out because we're going on a cruise.
And sometimes we're out because we're going on a cruise. Our family was on vacation last week, and so it's kind of difficult to record on the road if you're not set up to record on the road. Although
which we will be soon.
We will be very soon.
Whoop, whoop.
And we're excited about that. So, obviously, we start off the show every day. Thanking you for tuning in to the Hey Joe Show.
We're like once a week.
Every day of the show. Thank you for tuning in. Obviously, we want to welcome you to the Hey Joe Show if you're a first-time listener. And we will try to entertain you. We will try to enlighten you. We will try
funny just to listen to us,
not to bore you is mainly the thing. As we talk about culture, we talk about youth, we talk about families. And in this particular season that's coming to a conclusion very quickly, we're talking about being intentional. And so thank you for tuning in to the Hey Joe Show. And as always, we want to give a shout out to the folks over at the lightnetwork.tv.
Did you not already do that?
I did not. You're already not listening.
Well, this is true.
This is a part of my world. No, it is good to be with you tonight. And if you haven't checked out the lightnetwork.tv, we want to encourage you to do so. There's some wonderful podcasts there. And I can't tell you how many people I've talked to and recommended that podcast network to those who have been looking for podcast by New Testament Christians about all kinds of subjects from a biblical nature to a practical nature. And at the lightnetwork.tv, you will find a podcast for every one of your interests, including, that's where you'll find the audio for the Hey Joe Show. So if you haven't done so, check them out. But those of you who are joining us live tonight via the live feed on Facebook Live, thank you for tuning in. And we want to start off the show tonight by obviously continuing and finishing up eventually at the end of this season the subject of intentionality. But with everything going on surrounding high school and college graduations, we thought that it would be wise.
In the thick of it.
It would be wise to have a show dealing with being intentional in my steps and my walk after graduation. And of course, you know, Erin, I don't know, your graduation is a unique story. Mine is pretty, I guess you would say, plain Jane or plain Joe. Straightforward in the sense of I went to school in a public school and multiple public schools with Dad being a preacher. And I graduated at the end of the 12th grade.
That with you going to multiple public
Well, because
schools.
that was back in the day when we moved a lot all over the place.
That's all that is. You moved a lot.
Well, that's what that means. And those who lived through what I got to live through, not everybody got to stay in the same place.
Not many people lived through what you lived through.
Anyhow, the idea was, man, Miss Hey Joe.
I'm just saying.
The idea behind it was my graduation was pretty normal. And so your graduation is a little different, though.
Nothing about you that's pretty normal.
This is true. I am extraordinary. That's what you tried to say.
Yeah,
You just couldn't
that's
find the words.
exactly what I was trying to say.
Thank you for that. Now, go ahead. Tell us about your graduation experience.
It was very unique. I don't even know how to explain it without giving like this really long setup towards it and boring everybody. But the short version is I got tired of school. I wanted to work.
Just dropped out.
No, that's not what happened. I was so brilliantly smart.
That's right. You were like that child prodigy.
No, I was actually not a child.
I was not a child.
I was not a child prodigy. I was just determined. And so right after I turned 16, I decided to go to the local state university and take a couple tests to see if I could test out. And I did really well on the test. And they said, you can finish high school early. So,
which is pretty cool. At 16, you did that.
So at
16, I was nowhere near ready to do that.
At 16, I was done and working 3 jobs.
At 16, I was playing sports and complaining about homework.
Yeah.
So.
No, I had a morning job, an afternoon job, and an evening job. And a weekend job.
Which is eventually what took her to country radio as a radio disc jockey.
Well, I was a promotion coordinator and board operator, but I got to play on air for a while.
Okay, well, that sounds like a disc jockey to me, a guy who doesn't know anything. So, anyhow, our graduations, one was normal, one was not normal.
Because I didn't have a graduation ceremony. I got
right.
a certificate that said I was finished, and
see, and I had a cap
went right
and gown.
into the grown-up world.
You really did. You really did. I had decided that out of high school, I was going to go straight to college. And you went into the workforce immediately.
I'm like moving the fan over here.
Completely get all of that air you want.
Okay. It's hot in the studio.
That's right. And we are using the fan that John and Amy Morrison gave us as a gift to the Hey Joe show. Did you remember that?
I do remember that.
It's just not kicking in so well.
Somebody else want to gift another one?
Hey,
you
can turn that up past sleep. It's just quiet right now, so it won't be
that's
heard.
okay. All right, keep going.
Anyhow, I had decided I was going to go straight into college. Because at that point in time, I was thinking job, I was thinking sports. I wanted to play Division I football. I wasn't really thinking anything else, to be just 100% truthful with you. You graduating.
You were in the teen world, I was in the adult world.
Well, and that's a difference.
But seriously, because one of my day jobs was I worked at Target. Well, during the day, all the adults worked at Target because all the kids were in school. And then in the evening, I worked. And it was all adults. So I was literally surrounded by adults all day long.
Right. And I obviously was not. I was at 16. I was seriously getting through school and did well
dating?
in school.
No,
but
I was working.
You didn't have time for that until me.
Time at Joe, and then it was all over because I
was over. It's like, where do you go from here? I mean, once you date Joe, where are you going to go, right? But the idea was when I graduated, I was focused on a few things. And I can honestly say none of those things were let me find a church to be super involved with. That's my story.
Joe.
It is, but that's my story.
And you're sticking to it.
Well, no, I'm not sticking to it, and I'm not saying that for individuals to tout or to feel sorry. Obviously, the reality was I came from a home that had 2 godly parents, and I made a decision to go off to school and had a focus in mind. And with that focus, it took me down a path of not putting church attendance and not putting my relationship with God first in my life. And so for that first semester of school, I can say that I drifted away. And when I came home, my conscience was bothering me. When I came home for December, my conscience was bothering me because I knew it was wrong. And that's when I made a decision that I was going to have to eventually transfer from that school, quit making the excuses of working too much and not being able to go on Sundays. And that's when I repented. I mean, that was my coming back story. But here's where I'm going. I wonder how many other kids are similar to my story in that.
Oh, a lot. I think that's a very common story.
You know, and I don't want to overinflate anything. As far as statistics and numbers of what happens when kids leave high school, they graduate high school, and they go off to college, how many of them are faithful, how many of them are not faithful. The statistics that I've seen that probably there needs to be another study on it, specifically for the churches of Christ. Now, in the world of evangelicalism, it's It's quite high from what I understand. Our studies are somewhere in the range of 50% will leave, but roughly 20% will come back initially, or 30% will come back, and then we'll have to go out and re-evangelize the others that did not come back. We'll have to go out and reach them again. I was fortunate. I was blessed that my conscience had been shaped to come home. I guess is the way to say that. So, and I'm grateful that I did. I'm grateful God let me live that long. I'm grateful my parents were patient. I'm grateful that God is forgiving. But I will say this. I just think that as we talk about and we look about this season of graduation, that there needs to be some attention paid towards this idea, especially for those who are our teenage listeners or maybe early college age listeners, or even parents of kids who are graduating, of that when you look at graduation and you look at what's next, it will be real easy to focus on things that do not have eternal merit. In other words, you focus on job, you focus on career, you focus on supporting yourself, you focus on what college you want to go to, but it's not always on focusing on remaining faithful. That's what that is. It's not always the idea of, all right, I'm going to pick a school based upon how strong the Lord's church is in that area. Am I picking a profession based upon what that will do as far as the way it will impact my Christian walk? Does that make sense?
It makes sense.
And so I guess what I want to talk about tonight is, how is it that we can talk to each other about being intentional as we graduate? What are some things that need to happen in order for this whole concept of being intentional not to be lost upon every other plan that comes along in life? And so as we do so, I want you to know that it is possible to work a great job. It is possible to support your family. It is possible to go to an amazing school without losing your faith. That is absolutely possible. And it doesn't just have to happen at a Christian college as far as the faithfulness, because I will tell you this, and those who attend Christian colleges can tell you that just because you attend a Christian college doesn't mean that's the magic pill to being faithful. Although I will say that the statistics are probably much better for those who attend Christian colleges than they do for those who attend state schools. Excuse me. Sorry, you're listening to live radio here. That's what that happens. So anyhow, and so number one, I want you to know this. When you think about this transition, I always start with a parent's responsibility, because most times kids won't do this. I start with a parent's responsibility to making sure that there is a solid congregation in the area within reasonable distance to the school that your children are thinking about going to, or to the schools that your children are thinking about going to. Because oftentimes, as we're weeding through college letters, we're looking at programs. Maybe my child wants to be an architect. Maybe my child wants to be a lawyer. We're looking at schools that are very good in those areas. But my question is, are we looking at areas that have good congregations? Are they solid in the doctrine? Are they going to hold fast to the Word of God?
I would say, are they going to bring that college student in and make them a part of the church?
Yes. Are they going to treat that college student as a kind of an outsider?
Or family?
Or are they going to welcome that young person in as a family? And I think all of that needs to be researched, as well as you researching the programs and the schools that are of interest to your young people. And I would say this to the teenagers who are listening in these lines, is that you can't rely on your parents to do all that work for you, but you need to be doing some of that work too. And what does that look like? Well, what that looks like is this. It looks like you getting on the internet and researching. Obviously, with the number of web pages out there today pertaining to Churches of Christ, and you can get online, you can look that up, a particular group that you're looking for. What do they believe? What do they stand for? Do they hold fast to the doctrine of the Scriptures? Are they friendly? Are they evangelistic? Are they outward thinking? Or does it look like maybe they aren't interested in winning souls? I don't know how else to say that. I know that sounds horrible, because you can't tell all that from a website, right? So don't take that too far. But I would offer this to you, that you've got to do some homework in that area, and it starts with the internet.
Well, and also I would say, I think there might be times where people might say, well, they're an adult now. They need to do the research on their own because, their faith has got to be their own. And I would agree with that. However, I definitely think that as they are stepping out on this new journey of adulthood, of doing this on their own, that they still are going to need that navigation, and they're still going to need your help as they're doing it. Doesn't mean, you're holding them by the hand and doing every single thing for them. It just means that it's still a teaching thing. You're still helping them navigate, not just throwing them out there and say, figure this out on your own. Good luck.
Right. Well,
there's a delicate balance there.
Absolutely. And I can remember, I don't know if you remember, I remember very vividly the very first time that I had to sit down with my brother and have a discussion with the church leaders, the elders, regarding identifying with the congregation. And you look at that and go, well, why can you remember that? And because think about this, up to this point in time, kids they go where their parents take them. Most of the time, right? Most of the time. And as far as selecting a local congregation to belong to and to be a part of, usually that's a decision that, while talked about amongst family, it's a decision made by the mom and the dad. And so this is going to be the first time that young person is going to be attending and to be a part of a congregation, even though in college, I know a lot of young people won't necessarily identify with the congregation that they attend while they're in college. They will continue to identify as members of the home congregation, right? That's not abnormal, but still, this is the first time for them.
Right, and someone actually had a good comment. They said, we have to help our kids transition from reliance on their parents for discipline to exercising self-discipline.
Right, and this is a transition period.
Right.
So don't skip the transition.
Right.
Don't skip Now, there are a lot of transitions that occur in a teenager's life as they grow, but as they grow to go to college and they leave your home, that is a transition that neither they have gone through nor yourself. And so don't quit parenting through that transition, especially in matters of spirituality.
And that was my point from before.
There you go. See, we were on the same page all along.
All along.
So number one, it starts with finding a good church home. If I'm going to be intentional about being a faithful disciple of Jesus Christ in graduation and where I'm going, then I've got to make sure that I seek out the body of Christ immediately, correct?
Correct.
All right, so what would you say is next?
Next is an important for... Listen, all of a sudden, all of these comments are popping up that like something happened and I wasn't getting comments, and then like, woo, we have like 11 comments.
Well, what's there? What's there? Is there anything that needs to go on the show? I don't know.
I mean, it just...
Other than some people saying, man, Joe looks good in that hat tonight. I don't know. What is on there?
I must have missed that comment.
Oh, that comment didn't come out.
It didn't. I mean, well, there's some hey, Joe and Erin. Hey, there's some waving back.
Waving back.
Somebody enjoyed your lesson this morning. I guess they listened to it.
Hey, that was nice. Thank you to whoever that was.
Jerry Elder said at 16 he was celebrating the bicentennial of the USA. Woohoo!
That's a good year,
Driving
Brother
cars
Jerry.
way too fast, he said.
That was a good year, man.
And then other people were talking about how you, even though you talked earlier about how you fell away for a while after you went to college, that you had a good foundation. This particular person said they weren't introduced to church until the mid to late 20s.
Gotcha. So that, different backgrounds, different growing up periods. But the goal obviously is when a child graduates high school that they are faithful. And it's, that's what we're talking about.
Yes.
And keeping them faithful. So number one, it starts with a faithful church family. I would definitely say that.
Yes.
So number two, I would say this, especially for those young people who are graduating and leaving their parents' home. Now, I don't know your personal habits. Okay, there's no way I know your habits. There's no way.
I wonder why.
Well, because I'm not you, you're not me, right? So here's the deal. It's very difficult if you have not already established habits of being a daily Bible student. In other words, you talk to God in prayer and you let Him talk to you through study of His Word. If you have not already developed those habits before you leave your parents' house, I'm just going to be real with you. It doesn't mean it can't happen, but it's going to be difficult with all of that transition going on.
Oh, yeah.
However,
social clubs and homework.
Right. You're going to be pulled in more ways than you know. So, that being the case, if you're up on graduation, or even if you're not, maybe one of our sophomores, juniors who might listen to this, or parents of sophomores and juniors in high school who are listening to this, I would encourage this. You need to start a habit of communication with God daily, regularly. And notice I did not say you need to become a daily Bible reader. I only say that not because I shun the importance of regular study, regular reading of God's Word, but what I'm talking about is don't get into just a habit of routine reading without hearing what is being said in the Scriptures. And so that's where I draw the distinction. Sometimes our reading plans are, well, I've got to read 3 chapters today, and I just get through it, but I don't really think about anything. I can check that off my list. Whew! That's one other thing I can check off. And so what I want you to hear me say is this. You need to become regular in your communication with God. So through prayer, you talk to God. But through Bible study and meditation, He talks to you. That's how He communicates with us today. He's not going to supernaturally place something in you. He's given you the holy inspired Word of God. And so if you're going to be intentional in your graduation and be intentional in your walk after graduation, then you must not allow all the newness of the transition to distract you from regular communication with God.
Push that off of your agenda every day. Like just push that one off.
Right. I would almost say this. You think about the things that you do daily in life that you would do every day. You get up, you brush your teeth, you wash your face. Hopefully, you're going to eat. Most likely, when you get to college, you're going to eat more, right? And you're going to enjoy what that brings. Some of you are like, I don't know. Well, there's something called a freshman 15 on purpose, okay? You'll discover it when you're there. But the idea is that you do certain things every day because they are a part of your being as far as existence. They are a part of what you'll do. You're going to
breathe.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's some things that are regular. I guess what I'm trying to say is this. You've got to make communication with God regular.
Yes.
Okay? Now, I will say for adults, that also needs to be a part of it. I mean, how do we expect our kids to be ready to do that if we're not showing that that's important in our life? There's no way we can. That's telling our kids to do what I say, not what I do, which is bad in its concepts. Hypocrisy can actually hurt kids. So
right.
We've got to make sure that on our own if we're going to encourage young people to do the same thing. So number one, solidify a good church family before you get there. And as a matter of fact, even consider that in the direction that you go with your career. Number two, establish daily communication with God. And number three, I would say this. You got a comment from a listener?
No, but I have a comment.
Yeah, what's up?
Okay, so there is a very fantastic young lady that we know who is in college right now, actually. I believe she's in her sophomore year. And she posted something today that I thought was just really awesome, and I wanted to share it. I won't say who it is because she may not like to have her name put out there, but this is what she wrote, and I thought it was really great. She talks about how, I guess when you're in college, a lot of people say use your resources. So that's kind of the phrase that she's talking about. And she starts out talking about kind of what it means as a student. But then she puts an application to it that I think is great. She says, for many young adults, going to college becomes the make or break test of your faith. Faith that may have been heavily influenced by your parents and may have been your parents' faith now becomes your own. You now make the decision of whether or not to wake up on a Sunday morning and go to church services. You also discover and solidify what will be your core beliefs moving forward in life. I found in my experience that I have definitely grown more in my faith this year than any other year before. In growing my faith, in addition to self-study, I've asked the advice of several wise people in my life, and this has really helped me to become who I am today. I owe a lot to my parents in this. While my faith has become my own, I still ask for a lot of advice from them, and it has helped me immensely. So back to using your resources. While your faith does need to be your own, it's such a great thing to be able to talk to mentors you have, people like elders, deacons, ministers at church, parents, or strong Christian friends. Don't be afraid to ask for help when you need it, and be willing to give help where it is needed. Being a light in this dark world is very trying at times, but that is the reason God gave us our church family, and I'm so thankful for mine. So to all the people who are so influential to me in my walk of faith, thank you. You mean the world to me. And I thought that was excellent because even kind of like what we are going back to before. I mean, even your parents lay that foundation. You have to take that step out on your own when you get older. But I like how she said, still use your resources. It doesn't mean that you have to fly solo all the time now. There's still people out there that can help you on your walk back home, in your new town, all across the country. That's the great thing about social media.
I think that's beautiful. I'm glad that she said that. And that's reality for parents, which to me, that even goes into another area of, as I contemplate where I go to school and I contemplate where my kids go to school, are they going to be around individuals that can be that positive
Right.
resource? You know, and you got to think about that because oftentimes we're not thinking about these things as we think about college or we think about career. We're thinking, we're thinking career path. We're thinking field of study. We're thinking job. We're thinking money.
Right.
We may be thinking, hey, I want to go to that school.
So we put the spiritual on the back burner,
Right,
when really
right.
it should be reversed.
Correct. I guess that's what I'm saying is it possible that in being intentional, we look at the wrong qualities first? And we say, well, these are the things that I want, and if they have a good church, then that's great. Instead of saying, I want them to find a place where they can thrive spiritually, and if they find these other things, then that's great.
Right.
And I think that's the difference of being intentional versus just kind of being reactionary. And so I would also offer this, because we are coming to a close of the show. It just is the nature of the beast of a 30-minute
Erin
podcast.
Read a long old post, but I thought it was wonderful.
It was good, and I don't know who did that, but that young person ought to be commended. So
you won't be surprised when
I
you find
probably
out.
won't. But here's another concept that I want you to think about in being intentional. There are many career paths that we can choose. But as a young person, I will tell you this. You need to be careful of the career path you choose. Because your career path can either draw you closer to God or can take you further from Him as well.
This is truth.
And the reality is this. While I would love to tell you that every career path is solely about your knowledge in school, there are some things in certain careers that you do in order to make the career happen. I don't know how else to tell you that. For instance, and I know that there are some individuals who listen to this show that knew me in college, or at least they would chime in from time to time, and you knew that my undergraduate degree is in science. I wanted to go into athletic
Everybody
training.
that knows you knows this.
Probably.
You talk about it.
But I wanted to
all
go
the time.
into athletic training. However, as much as I love sports, what I came to conclude at the end of my studies was that athletic training, at least at the collegiate level, potentially at other levels as well, is a field that requires a lot of time away from home. And you will spend a lot of time with people that are not your family. You'll spend a lot of time with, as from a male standpoint, I would be spending a lot of time with individuals, with women trainers that wouldn't be my wife, or vice versa. And it doesn't mean that all levels of athletic training are bad and that you should stay away. Don't hear me say that. But that's something I did not know until I had gotten down that road. And so what I would encourage you is consider your career path and whether your career path will help you grow closer to God or take you further from Him. I think that needs to be said. Oftentimes we don't think those ways. We think, well, what do I want to be when I grow up? And we think of teacher, we think of lawyer, we think
I'm sing a song in my head now.
of all these various things. But the truth of the matter is this: what do I want to be when I grow up? I want to be a Christian. I want to be a faithful disciple. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this job to help support myself, but that's not who I am. I am a faithful disciple of Jesus Christ. I may have interest in this area, but that's not going to define me. I am a faithful disciple of Jesus Christ who happens to do this job. You fill in that blank, right? So what we've got to do is we've got to, kind of the same concept of what we were talking about earlier, we've got to reverse the priorities. Mm-hmm. We've got to turn it on its head and start looking at our situation in an intentional manner and say, is this career of study going to help me get to heaven or hurt me in that endeavor? And sometimes you don't know until you start down that path. And then you decide, you know what, maybe that's not the direction I should have gone. Or you're going to say, you know what, yeah, it will require a lot. However, through that, I will be able to reach people and minister to people that I would not have normally been able to minister to or to reach. And so even in that, what you do is you look at your career not solely as a way to do what you like so you can make money, but you look at it as an extension of the commission that we have as children of God to bring individuals and introduce them to Jesus.
I like how you threw commission in there.
That's a big word, isn't it? All right, what do you have? Somebody's been writing us because we do need to wrap it up, but I want to make sure any and every one of our comments that need to be on the show make the show.
Well, Vicky, our friend Vicky said, we're sure glad you saw that was a major distraction.
Well, thank you, Vicky.
So,
and by the way, thanks for
sweet.
tuning in.
Yes, absolutely. Our friend Jonathan Exum says he's thankful for men like, for him and particularly Tom Holland, who's influenced a lot of people. And let's see, Vicky also said such a fantastic reversal you're speaking of. And Jonathan's also starting at a preaching school starting in January of next year. So he says, I encourage all young people to consider what their role could be in the church.
I agree. Even as it pertains to whatever kind of schooling you choose, be it school of preaching, be it a Christian college, be it a public college, be it a junior college, be it no college at all, be it a trade school, whatever it is. The issue is this: are our priorities in line? Or are we thinking in lines of the world versus thinking in lines of eternity?
Right.
And that doesn't happen by accident.
Nope.
You've got to be intentional in that manner. So, all right, that's all we have time for tonight. Can you believe that? The show has already gone over.
Out.
And it is time to sign off. So as always, again, we want to thank you for tuning in to the Hey Joe Show. If you have not already gone to Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram and liked us or followed us at Kyle Publications, please do so. That's where you'll find all the latest information about what's going on with the Hey Joe Show and at Kyle Publications. And, of course, we want to encourage you to go to our website. That's where you're going to find all the resources that Kyle Publications offers. And I will tell you this, we have a lot of new resources that will be coming out by Polishing the Pulpit. And I'm excited about it, but I don't want to spill the beans just yet.
Don't spoil the surprise yet.
So we've got a lot of work to do, but I want to encourage you to do that. And, of course, always thank the folks over at the lightnetwork.tv. Erin, that's all that I have. And if I don't sign off, then the show producer is going to cut me. So do you have anything else?
That's it.
All right, we are out.
Please hang up and try again.